first text that we're going to be looking at in a second is reflective of where my head is. So let's begin with the blessings for the study of Torah, and then we'll jump into the text. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'asok b'divrei Torah. All right, so without further ado, and by the way, I am going to be speaking along with some of the other participants from the Israel trip next Shabbat after lunch. So if you're interested and you want to stay after shul, or come to shul, or come after shul, we're going to be speaking. Okay, so
That tomorrow or a week from tomorrow?
A week from tomorrow.
A week from tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, can you all see, does it say Torah for today? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Just make you all big enough so I can see all of you. Okay. So this is Parshat Bishalach. The Israelites have left Egypt after hundreds of years of being in servitude. And this is the story this week of both the splitting of the sea and the escaping of the Israelites through the sea, as well as them receiving the manna and instructions for Shabbat. So that's a little bit of a background. We're going to look at hopefully two passages today and the commentary on those two passages. The first one from Exodus chapter 17, verse 9. Towards the very end of the Torah portion, when the last thing that happens in this Torah portion is Amalek, the enemy of the Jewish people, the ones who took the innocent stragglers of the Israelite nation, the women, the children, those who were ill, from the back and attacked them to kill and slaughter them. And Israel goes to war against the Amalekites. And this verse that we're looking at, Vayomer Moshe Yoshua, Bachar lanu anashim v'tzei halechem be'amalek machar anochi nitzav al rosh hagiva u'mateh Elohim beyadi. Moses said to Joshua, select men for us and go out to do battle with Amalek. Tomorrow I will set myself on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. And if you remember the story from the book of Exodus, when Moses' hands are raised, right, the Israelites are victorious. When his hands fall down, they suffer. And so he keeps his hands up with the help of Joshua and Caleb to battle against Amalek. And we know later on in the book of Deuteronomy, it says that we must remember what Amalek did to us on the way out of Egypt. So I want to take a look at this first bold verse. Moses said to Joshua, select men for us and go out to do battle with Amalek. Seems pretty straightforward, yes? Okay, so what does Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch of Vilna, who was the rabbi of Vilna and Kovno and one of the leaders of the Musar movement, what does he say? So the first thing he does is he brings a quote from Exodus Rabbah, from a midrash, which says, why was Joshua selected to lead the battle? Moses said to him, your ancestor said, for I fear God. And of Amalek, it says, and he feared not God. So let the descendants of him who said, for I fear God, come and punish him of whom it says, and he feared not God. So I put a little note in the parentheses, Joshua is descended from Ephraim, who's the son of Joseph, who said, I fear God. So that's why Joshua was selected, because he comes from this family who fears God, and he's in battle against an enemy that doesn't fear God. Okay, that's the midrash. Are we clear? We understand the midrash? The midrash just simply asks the question, why Joshua of all people? And it's because he can go to battle against those who fear God, because he who don't fear God because he fears God. Now comes his commentary, and he says, this is how to understand it. When two forces are in conflict, each side needs to know the strategies and the battle plans of the other, as well as what weaponry he has, in order to use similar strategies and weapons in response. Now, Amalek's main weapon is not fearing God. People may be endowed with many negative qualities. They may be cruel and abominable, but nothing is more dangerous than a person without a fundamental sense of faith or of conscience. Can you see why I chose this text? After seeing the horrors of Kfar Aza and the Nova Festival in Israel, it resonated with me. Amalek in the form of Hamas. Hamas' main weapon, not fearing God. Cruel and abominable. Since they have no one of whom they are afraid, there is no break on their passions or desires. We heard at one moment in one of the lectures that we attended that Hamas had a very clear plan of destruction in front of them. There were a number of communities, 20 so communities, that they were aiming to get to slaughter, murder, and rape innocent Israeli civilians. But they got so caught up in places like the Nova Festival, which they were surprised, they didn't know that there were going to be so many young Israelis there. They got so caught up in the butchery that they committed, in the horrific sexual violations of the women and men that they met with, that they didn't get as far as they wanted to go. And it reminds me, this line, since they have no one of whom they are afraid, there is no break on their passions or desires. They do whatever their heart comes up with, since to their mind, there is no justice and there is no judge. This is what Abraham sensed in the Philistia when he said, I thought there was no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me. That's why Abraham decided to pretend that his wife was his sister, because he was afraid they would do terrible things to his wife.
Rabbi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, that's why I have a question.
Yeah.
Because in the Islamic religion, they do feel that there is some justice by Allah, and that Allah's dictate is to kill or slaughter or take as slaves Jews. So in their mind, I think they have a judge, but their judge is very different than our judge. And what they do, they consider, I don't want to say legal, but this following their religious traditions. They're maybe extreme and maybe not followed by everybody, but certainly all those thousands who came across the border believed that their judge says that what they're doing is justice.
So I want to correct one thing you said in the beginning. You said Islam, and I would argue that Islamism, which is different than Islam.
Okay. Although the reason I said it is because from what I've read of the book, there are passages that specifically talk about killing Jews.
Yeah. Look, let's not forget, Matt, that there are passages in the Torah that talk about slaughtering also entire nations.
Yes.
So all scripture should be read in line with modern morality. And the beauty of the rabbinic tradition is that it took passages that were anathema to us, morally abhorrent, and reread those passages. And while Islam has not done the work that it needs to do to modernize, I would still make a distinction between Islam and Islamism. Jihadism, Islamism is what you are describing. And again, I'm going to agree, or you didn't state this, but I will state that the biggest challenge to Islam today is the lack of the voice of the moderates who don't practice Islamism to call out the horrors of jihadism and Islamism. And too many of them are silent. Now, there are some, for example, 2 weeks ago, we had a woman here at Guys Night who is a very strong Muslim. And she spoke out against the jihadism and Islamism. And she and some of her, other women friends who are Islamic, who are Muslim, went to Israel to show support. So I don't want to lump in all of Islam into the jihadists. And I agree with you. The way you described what you described is certainly jihadism. And it's a religion. The religion is to kill, maim, slaughter those who don't believe in their form of religious fanaticism. And if they die, they believe they will have 70 virgins in heaven.
72.
72. Thanks.
Too short.
So I would, I agree with everything you've said, but from my perspective, if you look at their religion as a spear, the point of the spear has been for 1,500 years those extremists. That's why I believe that there's the sword on the flag.
But you have to remember, how many hundreds of years did Jews live in peace with Muslims during the golden age of Spain and beyond, where Muslims ruled the world?
So how did they get there? So you're right. They ruled the world. How did they get there?
They lived in peace with Jews, and Jews reached to the highest levels of positions of power in Islamic lands. And one could also argue, look at the Crusades, look at Christianity in the 1000s and 1100s and 1200s, how brutal and vicious they were as well. Religions have a tendency.
And they went through a reformation.
They did, exactly. And that's why I said Islam has not gone through that reformation in the way that it needs to. I agree wholeheartedly. But to say that Jews were always treated with Muslims the way that Hamas is treating Jews today, not only is that not true, but you have all of these now moderate Sunni states like Bahrain and UAE, Abu Dhabi, who have made Jordan, Egypt, who have made peace with Israel, Saudi Arabia, God willing, who, is possibly closer to making peace with Israel, who are not practicing an Islam that is practiced by the jihadists, or the jihadists, excuse me. So I think we just have to keep both of those at the same time. We have to hold both of those ideas. We have to recognize that there are those who Israel is the front lines of a battle in Western civilization between Western civilization, fighting against this medieval, authoritative, destructive, nihilistic, I can't even call it religion, because I don't really see it as a religion. and moderate Muslims who want to live side by side with Christians, Jews, Americans, Israel, etc.
So it wasn't that long ago that the Ottoman Empire, the Turkish Empire, expanded all the way into Eastern Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm sure there were moderates, in the tail of that spear, but it was being pushed forward by the, I'll call them jihadists, the ones who wanted to spread the religion by the sword.
Yeah. Look, in the same
And,
way, it's the same way, Matt, as the Crusaders in Europe.
and my fear now is that, that push, whether it was ISIS or now, the Palestinians or whatever, there's still that push to expand. And once they expand, look what happens to the Jews in virtually every country, whether it's Iraq, Iran. I mean, there's no more. We're not there anymore.
That's right. And that's why Israel must continue to defend itself, and the world needs to give them the opportunity to defend themselves. And South Africa and The Hague are not making it easy. And the United States is tottering, which is why we need to go out and pound our Congress people to continue to support Israel, for the very reason, Matthew, that Israel is the front lines of a much larger battle that we are all involved in. For sure. For sure.
Yes.
Yeah, Steve.
I was going to comment. I read an article today about what's going on in India and how the Hindu majority in India is changing what was formed as a secular country into a country where Hindus control the government and control society and victimizing their Muslim, which is a very large Muslim population. This is a very worrying trend in my mind, and this is occurring in other countries in Europe. It appears to be supporting Putin in Russia. That religious passion is overcoming a goal of creating secular nations where all religions are tolerated, and I find it very worrisome.
Yeah, I mean, America is unique amongst the countries of the world which can allow for a pluralism, a real and true pluralism, and allow a separation of church and state. And that was the beauty of our founding fathers, who recognized the intolerance that religion can play and the abuse that religion could play in politics, and were prescient in recognizing the need to separate those two things, which is why America is such an amazing country, despite all of its complicated political issues that we are all facing. But you're right, Steve. Absolutely. George.
Yeah, I mean, there's many wonderful Muslims in Israel and other places. We're not going to argue that. But every now and then, one of them, starts killing Jews. Out of nowhere. The guy starts shooting Jews or, stabbing them, and somebody they never suspected, or he may have gotten radicalized somewhere. And so it's not that simple, You never know. I mean, even in these communities near Gaza, there are guys who are working, come to work from Gaza, think they'd be okay. They're mapping out the place,
Right.
Showing the killers, where the people are, how to go about it. So it's not that simple, It'd be nice to work, but
That's right. But again, I don't want us to forget that there are also radical Israelis.
Well, they haven't killed 1,200 people.
Who have been radicalized by their rabbis to go and commit terrorist attacks against Arabs and Palestinians.
Yeah,
and
those are minor.
Don't have to go
compared to what just happened. Okay, I mean, they're regrettable. I'm not excusing anything, but one or two get killed. It's bad, but it's not a massive slaughter like we just saw.
That's only because they're constrained by the government if left to their own devices. We've already heard certain Israeli politicians who want to physically remove all Palestinians and Arabs from the land of Israel. So to me, that's the same kind of
Yeah, but they're not doing it, okay? And in the democracy, you get all kinds
because
of
there's a
opinions.
democracy.
Even
Exactly.
here, you got an opinion way out this way or way out that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
But, they're not controlling it, but,
Again, I would say there are extremists in all religious
yeah,
faiths,
but they didn't kill
including our
1,200
own.
people and kidnap 200 or 300 more, okay? Yeah,
All right,
sure.
let's-
There's
let's-
all kinds of bad people, whatever, yeah.
That is true.
But this is a massive murder, okay? This is a massive slaughter, and it's a declaration of war. And, it's a war.
I couldn't
That's
agree
what
with
it
you
is,
more. I witnessed it firsthand. I
Yeah.
saw the after effects of it.
Yeah.
Let's keep going because we're gonna now move. He moves us from a political structure of good and evil between nations to more of an internal battle of good and evil within ourselves.
Yeah.
Watch what he does. This is the teaching. Sorry, let me move it up a little bit. This is the teaching of the masters of Musar. One may have 1,000 reasons, rational ideas drawn from a thoughtful mind, but they can be pushed aside by a single desire. Only fear of God can reign in our destructive passions. Do you see what he does? He moves from the battle between Amalek and Israel, a nation that does fear God versus a nation that doesn't fear God, and the nation that doesn't fear God that creates untold horrors, and he moves it to a battle within. That in our own inner lives, there are rational thoughts, irrational thoughts. There are ideas or behaviors that express our fear of God, and there are potentialities that we would act with no fear of God. Right? The temptations that exist in our life to do those things that we shouldn't be doing are expressions of the part of ourselves that lives with no fear of God. And it's only because we have also the fear of God to counterbalance that, then for the most part, we choose to live moral and ethical lives. But it's a battle. It's a constant struggle. Yeah. Lior.
My question is this the power of Yetzer Hara? Is that what we're
Exactly.
talking about?
That's exactly what he's saying. Thank you, Lior. What he's basically saying is Amalek is representative of the Yetzer Hara, and Joshua is representative of the Yetzer Hatov, the evil inclination and the good inclination. And those two are embattled within me and each one of us. Exactly. So he continues. So Israel faced with Amalek might have reasoned, we too will do battle with his weapons, with every devious and false tactic there is, with every abominable and cruel brutality. But the Midrash teaches us that these are Amalek's weapons alone. They will not work for us. Our armament is, and all the peoples of the land will see that the name of Adonai is upon you, and they will fear you. Going back to George's comment, right? Hopefully, even for those Israelis who live in the extreme, who want to destroy all of the Palestinians, and push out all of the Arabs from Israel, what holds them back is not only the democratically elected government of Israel and the majority views of the people, but also the internal. And all the peoples of the land will see the name of Adonai is upon you, and they will fear you. In other words, their own fear of God will hopefully stop them from doing the same kind of despicable and horrific acts, even if given the chance, that Hamas did to Israel. This is the sense of your ancestors said, I fear God. And of this one, it says, and he feared not God. Let the descendant of the one who said, I fear God, punish him, of whom it says, and he feared not God. In other words, let our Yetzer HaTov within us that says, I fear God, battle and be victorious over our Yetzer Hara that says, I don't fear God. Moses's intention in sending Joshua out to battle was that he would do with Israel's weaponry. If they will be God-fearing and so endowed with good and upright qualities, they will surely be victorious. And friends, I think this is exactly what we're seeing right now in Israel today. Israel is fighting a war in Gaza, very different than the war that Gazans and Hamas fought with Israel. And it's unfortunate that there are innocent Israeli soldiers who are dying because of Israel's unwillingness to fight the same kind of war that Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Iranians want to fight, which is mass destruction of as many people as possible. That's not who Israel is. Israel is willing to hold fast to their moral values, even when it risks their own soldiers' lives in order to stay true to the values of the Jewish people. And that is a remarkable thing. And I got to tell you something. This is amazing. We were serving sandwiches for 5 hours, making sandwiches, serving breakfast, doing all from 8:30 till 2 o'clock, 2 kilometers from the border of Gaza. Hundreds of soldiers coming to get a taste of a home-cooked meal and then turning around and going back. And you saw this sense of happiness and joy, of fulfillment. They were doing what they needed to do because they were doing it in a moral and ethical way. They so believe in the state of Israel and the morality of the state of Israel, and they fight a war where they can sleep at night with their conscience. And that is so important. And that, I think, is what this text is suggesting to us. So there's both the external battles that we have to fight, the Israel versus Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and there's the internal battles that we fight. Knowing right from wrong and adhering to the right, even when the desire to do the wrong is so very strong and compelling. Leora.
Please help me understand. From my point of view, that's how I saw the Muslim society, is that when they say God is great, and they aim to kill people, kill Jews, I thought that's in their Bible that they got from their what's his name?
The Quran.
Yes. I guess that's not what you're saying, so I'm not understanding.
No, that's not. You're misunderstanding. In other words, your comment is similar to Matt's comment earlier. There's a difference between Islam and Islamism. And even though there are texts in the Quran that speak of jihad, there are plenty of moderate Muslims who don't believe it. There are plenty of Muslims who are not moderate who believe it. There's no question. ISIS is one example. Shia, Iranian is another example. Hamas and Hezbollah, but it's not universal across the board. And what I said in response to Matt's comment is Islam has a lot of work to do to moderate the extreme voices within Islam, and it's not doing a very good job of moderating.
Thank you.
George.
Yeah, well, first of all, the Gaza declared war, and secondly, in Germany in World War II, I mean, there are a lot of innocent Germans, just guys going about their business or kids, and they were, bombed to smithereens, by the Allies to win the war. Unfortunately, sometimes you got to think about your own people instead of getting them killed by being too careful. I mean, how many Israeli soldiers are you willing to sacrifice to be real careful?
You're right. I said that. I said that 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. I mean, any general, that I know of would say, just go get them, I mean, quickly instead of.
Although if you look at it, the question from a geopolitical standpoint,
Yeah.
Israel has to take note of world opinion.
It makes no difference.
Israel.
They hate Israel. They call them
No, wait, hold on.
Okay.
Israel gets billions of dollars from the United States government.
Yeah, okay.
The United States government and the people of America right now,
Yeah.
67% as of the last most recent poll side with Israel.
Yeah.
I wonder if Israel carpet bombed Gaza the way you're describing.
Well, I didn't say that. I don't know how.
If 67% of Americans would continue to side with Israel.
Okay, you're just drawing this thing out, by not wanting to win. I mean, the last time America won a war was 1945. We're not experts at it here.
Again, I believe that Israel must take into consideration.
Yeah, okay, some, but not.
There's three categories of people in the world today. There's three types of states. There are those who see and wish for the destruction of Israel no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
There are those moderates who are willing to negotiate with Israel and make peace. And there are those who are fully supportive of Israel. And Israel has to fight a war in order to hold on to those who support Israel and those moderates who will go one way or the other.
Yeah, the longer this drags out, the more people are going to get killed anyway. Slowly.
Let's move on. Let's move away from the realpolitik of it and bring it back into the personal. So Rabbi Jonathan Slater says, in response to this text, Rabbi Tzvi warns us to avoid the seduction of responding in kind, of letting realpolitik trump Yirat Shamayim, fear of heaven. In our battle with Amalek, which again is the ongoing inner struggle with our Yetzer Hara, with those habits of mind and heart that impede mindful awareness, we will only make our situation worse by using the tools of the Yetzer. We will further dull our senses and increase guilt or self-deception, knowing that we have betrayed our truest values in God. Have you ever, and you don't have to answer this by raising your hand, have you ever rationalized bad behavior? Have you ever used the power of rationalization to convince you to continue doing something that you know you shouldn't be doing? Right? I think yes, the answer is yes for all of us. We're human beings. We're not perfect. And what this text is inviting us to think about is in those moments where we might very quickly rationalize bad behavior, can we hold on to the fear of heaven in those moments?
Yeah.
And might that shake us out of the places that we know we shouldn't go to? In other words, what wakes you up to turn to the right path as opposed to the wrong path? That's what the text is inviting us to think about. And I think that's fair. Right? What are the tools each one of us uses to remind ourselves when headed down in the wrong direction to change the direction and move back into the right direction? Right? So, thoughts to consider. Rabbi Hirsch builds his drush on the opposition of fears God, does not fear God. Amalek manifests in our lives in other ways, which may or may not be analogous of fear of God, and we are called to oppose, to vanquish this. How do we do this without becoming violent and so possibly becoming Amalek ourselves? Can we oppose anger with anger? What is the difference between firm resolve and righteous anger, both theoretically and experientially? What prevents righteous anger from becoming self-righteous anger? It's an interesting question, I got to tell you. I listened to Israeli soldiers when I was in Israel, and the restraint they have in the face of what any one of us could argue should be irrational anger at what happened to their fellow citizens, they still are behaving in a moral and ethical way. And it is an amazing thing to see. Yeah, George.
Yeah, again, if the Gaza government, comes and murders, brutally, 1,200 people, takes 200-300 hostages, I think they have a duty to win, okay? It's not like, oh, we'll just go a little bit, we won't hurt too much, we got to be, extra careful, we've got this, I mean, even in our history books, like Esther, they killed, I don't know, 70,000 or something, and they'd killed Amalek before with Saul, all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, this is, this is when this kind of thing happens. I mean, you owe it to yourself and everybody else to be real tough, to just pour it on, because this cannot be allowed to happen.
Yeah.
We can't say, oh, well, we'll give up, we'll have a truce, we'll give you this, we won't do that. No. Just keep pounding them until they surrender.
Although I believe, Kathleen, I see your hand. I'm going to call it on a second. I believe when anger takes over as a response, rational thought flies out the window.
Yeah, but you gotta let them
And
know that this is
wait.
not acceptable, so we're not just gonna be nice guys. Somebody else
do you
do it again, we
think,
won't do too much,
George, do you think that's the way Israel is approaching this?
That's the way it should, okay, in my view.
No,
And
I'm not
anybody
asking.
who pulls that kind of stuff,
But George, you're not answering my question.
Yeah.
Just listen to my question.
Yeah.
Do you think Israel is reacting in a soft way right now?
As soft as they can and trying to win eventually.
They have
Okay.
obliterated almost every building in Gaza.
Good.
They have
Okay.
killed So I don't see how you can say they're not acting with
Well,
strength.
you told me that they're holding back, because of this moral code.
They are,
That's what you're telling me, and that's what
they are holding back because of the
Yeah.
moral code,
Yeah,
but that
well.
doesn't mean they're being soft.
Well, if they're
They're
not holding,
they're fighting a fight
yeah,
with morality as in the forefront of this fight. So they're not losing their souls while they are fighting this fight.
well, it should be to eliminate quote Amalek. This is horrendous. What happened?
Yeah.
This is so far beyond anything, that ever happened to Israel.
Yeah.
So
Kathleen, let Kathleen, Leora, and then Matthew. Go ahead, Kathleen. Make sure you wait, Kathleen, you have to unmute yourself.
I think it's not about giving it all in your fighting, which I think Israel is doing. I think it's about the laws of war that God has set out for us, because he says, don't destroy trees that bear food. I mean, we shouldn't be doing things that destroy the environment, like, COVID or gain of function research that kills people and it hurts our environment and prevents us from living. I think we can do a lot of truly evil things that violate the morality of war. That there is a morality within war, and that what they're talking about here is if you don't have a fear of God, you're going to violate that morality, because it's really about the unity of the world. We don't want to destroy things that will destroy our chances for survival. And that's the morality that God gives us, because he's saying we're all connected. The earth is connected to us. Don't do things that harm the earth while we're trying to win. We can still fight as hard as we can. We're still going to kill people. We're still going to have casualties, and that's a tragedy, but we may have to do it, but we're going to fight it in a moral way.
Great. Thank you. Said perfectly. Leora.
I'm sorry to say that I'm deeply disappointed of listening to George.
Okay.
I don't know how much information you actually get from Israel, from the troops, and from the families. I think they are putting everything they have to win the war. I don't think that they are pretending, they're just there to protect our country. So.
Yeah, well, there's been cases
Thank you.
where
Wait, George, it's not a dialogue. It's Matt's turn.
Oh, sorry, Matt.
So it's unfortunate I think for Israel that the world expects one kind of behavior from Israel and doesn't expect it from virtually every other society on the planet. No matter where you are on the planet, whether you're in Africa and Rohingyas are being slaughtered, just, no one cares. No one puts any kibosh on virtually anything, yet the world expects Israel to behave even differently than America. Look what we do. We will do the carpet bombing, no problem. But Israel, and it's a shame that they can't win a war the way everyone else can win a war.
It's true. I agree with you, Matt. I agree. At least the positive thing is that Israel also holds itself to a higher standard, and Israel chooses, because even if they were given the choice, even if the world said, bomb the crap out of Gaza, just destroy the whole country, I don't think Israel would, because that's not what it means to be a moral human being, a Jew. And so you're right. It's a double standard. It's an unfair double standard. But thank God, even within that double standard, Israel holds itself above all other nations.
The fact that they warn we're going to bomb here.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. There is no example of another country warning people to get out. We're going to bomb here. We're going to attack there. I mean, you just don't give warning. It's just not
It's true.
anything it's done.
It's true. I hear you. Yep. George.
Well, I don't know, we've been going for at least 4 months, not ending it quickly. Another thing is,
Not 4 months, 111 days.
okay, October, November, December, okay, whatever, okay, so it's, but it's a long time, compared to what it should take, because Gaza is essentially defenseless. Okay, they got tunnels, but that's it. I don't know. I was told, now I may be wrong, that when the people are firing at the Israeli troops from buildings, they just try to get the guys firing instead of just leveling the buildings so everybody goes who's in there, which most countries would do. Somebody's firing at you, at your troops, you eliminate it. You don't sit there and get a few people killed, or recently 21,
Yep.
So, I mean, we're very generous, with our soldiers. Oh, yeah, kind of hold back, be a nice guy, and, more and more get killed. That's,
All
we're
right,
generous about it,
let's
sitting here.
let's move on. Let's move on. I knew this text would be a controversial one, but nevertheless, I thought I would share it because I think it is so relevant to today. It's amazing that it was written so many years ago, and yet it speaks so relevantly to the world that we're living in. Torah in every generation. Let's take a look at Exodus 15. This is the moment of the Song of the Sea. This is the moment when they have walked through the Sea of Reeds. The Israelites have been drowned, and they sing this song afterwards. Ozi v'zimrat ya vayahi li lishua ze eli v'anvehu Elohei avi aruminehu. Right, and we know that. Ozi v'zimrat ya. Right, we're familiar with it. We sing it every Shabbat morning. Adonai is my strength and my might. God is my deliverance. This is my God. I will glorify him. The God of my father, I will exalt him. So in this commentary, there is a play on the difference between this is the God, this is my God, and this is the God of my father. And what's the difference between saying this is my God and this is the God of my father? So the Maaseh Tzadikim, when Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kotsk, one of the early founders of Hasidism, when he reached the age of bar mitzvah, he drew near to Hasidim and was drawn to Hasidism. He went to visit with the Chozeh of Lublin. Rabbi Menachem Mendel's father was a neged and opposed to Hasidim, and he rebuked his son, arguing that he was departing from the ways of his predecessors. Rabbi Menachem Mendel responded, Scripture says, this is my God, and I will glorify him, the God of my fathers, and I will exalt him. First, we have to find our own God. This is my God. And then it is up to us to make this God equal to the God of my father. So do you understand what's going on here? You've got this young guy, Menachem Mendel of Kotsk, who grew up in a community of mitnagdim. Mitnagdim literally means those who are against. And who are they against? They were against the Hasidim. Even back then, Jews were divided, right? And he grew up as part of the mitnagdim community, and yet he was drawn to the Hasidim. And so when he went, he learned this message. First, find your own way, and then figure out how you can coalesce your own way to that of those of your parents. What do you think about this? Leora.
As a parent and myself, I agree with that 100%. You can raise a child to the way you think that's the right way to do it. But then when they get to an age that they can find themselves or don't like what you're teaching them, they will find their way.
Mhm.
George.
Yeah, well, what if your father is an atheist or doesn't believe in anything?
Right?
You don't want to be equal to that. You want to be above, you want to be stronger.
Yeah, that's not what this text is assuming. This text
Yeah,
is not
yeah.
assuming, right? As soon as it says God of my father, it's
Yeah.
assuming that
Room thing, yeah.
not from, just that you have a relationship to God in your own way, that your father had a relationship to
Well,
God.
maybe somebody's father didn't have a relationship. He didn't believe it.
No, but then again, that may be, but that's not what this text is
Yeah, okay.
specifically saying. What this is saying is, for example, like Leora said, George, you are a believer. Your children may have their own path that's
Yeah.
very different than your path.
Yeah.
What do you do with that as a father to a child who walks a different path? That's really what the text is asking us. What do you do with your children who don't follow in the ways that you raise them, who don't abide by the structure that you created for them around ideology, philosophy, theology? What do you do with that? Right? And I imagine each one of you have kids that maybe didn't follow in the same path that you've followed, or maybe they have. And what do you do with that? How do you relate to those kids who have chosen to live their life in ways that are very contrary to the way that you raised them, who have made choices that you would never make in your life? What do you do with that? Do you say, that's it, we're done, I want nothing to do with you? Do you find a way to compromise, to live in relationship with them, even if you don't agree with the positions that they've taken? Leora?
This is where I take וחנכת את הילד על פי דרכו. That's
Well, maybe. I mean, that means, folks, that's a line from the book of Proverbs that says, educate a child in the path that you want them to go, and they will not veer from it. But I don't think that's the reality, right?
No.
Lots of us educate children in the path that we want them to go, and they choose their own path.
This is where, and this is where I take the position that you don't have to love your parents, but you do have to respect them. So do what you need to do, and do not criticize your parents for what they're doing.
But this text is not about the child. This is about the parent. This is about you. In other words, this text is, how do you approach your kids who have rejected core teachings that you have provided to them? What do you do? How do you reconcile that? That's what the text is inviting us to think about. Yeah, Rob.
I don't think you have any choice but to accept those choices and to love them for who they are. I don't see any other path. If you want to keep pushing your point of view on them as adults, you're going to do nothing but alienate them, and you have to love them and meet them where they are.
Right. Other thoughts? Others of you who have kids who have gone in directions different than what you had hoped, how you navigate that and have managed it. Yeah, Matt.
Well, so I got two kids, and one has chosen a less observant lifestyle. Not bad, but like a good example is she loves her tray food. The tray, the trafer, the better. I joke about bacon wrapped shrimp.
Yeah.
And we have dealt with that in that she respects when we come over, she won't serve that. But when she posts something on the internet, her life on the internet, she'll take pictures of the food being served at some restaurant that we just wouldn't order. And we've come to an understanding. It's been an interesting challenge, but the kids aren't bad. They're not committing crimes where you may want to have no relationship with them. So
Good.
that's where.
So great, Matt. So there's a distinction, right? There may be ritual behaviors that feel very different than where your comfort zone is. And I think what Rob said, if you stay connected to your kids in a meaningful way, hopefully they will respect where you come from. And even if they don't choose to abide by it, will still be respectful of you in the context. The way your daughter will not, serve certain things to you when you and Judy come over, but may, do it on their own. As opposed to behaviors that really go against moral and ethical actions. Good. And I think that's a really fair and clear distinction. One last comment, one last thought by any of you in terms of navigating this. All right. Well, 2 texts, hard ones today, but ones that hopefully help us frame Torah in light of what it means to live in the modern world, and relate to the challenges that we all face, the battles within and the challenges with children, and the geopolitical challenges as well. So thank you all, and I look forward to studying with you again. I think I'm on next week and off the following week. So
I have a question. Rabbi. I believe it was Steve Sachs who was posting some of the places you went. When you do your presentation in 2 weeks or a week and a half, will those videos be aired?
Because it's Shabbat, we can't. That was the one problem with doing it on Shabbat. So we'll try to find a way in which we'll put more of those videos, onto the e-news so that people can see them and experience them.
Thank you.
Because I thought he did a super job. I don't know who else. I couldn't find anyone else posting, but maybe there were, but he did a great job, lengthy videos from people who were making presentations to you.
Yeah, he did do a good job. And, we'll try to get those videos out there. Minimally, we will share what we learned and the reflections from the various people that spoke to us and that we learned from. So,
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
of course, have a good day, everybody, and I will see you all soon.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.